Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL Correspondent Week, episode 15. My name's James. Coming up very shortly, mine and Suj's chat with Lee Jackson, our new Aston Villa correspondent, about all things Villa. Got some interesting chats coming up on Martinez, Buendia, Bailey, and Ollie Watkins, who, until this podcast ended, was pretty much nailed in my FPL team. But shortly after completing recording, Villa announced that they'd signed Danny Ings. At the end of the podcast, Lee rejoins myself for an additional chat for 5 minutes or so on his thoughts on Ings, Watkins, Buendia, and possible systems now that Ings is a confirmed Villa player. Enjoy the podcast. Hang around for the additional content at the end.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
And for the second time this week, James, we are introducing a new correspondent. Let's do it.
Yeah, hopefully by the time I've introduced him, my internet won't have crashed again like it has for the last half hour. Let me introduce you. I'm delighted to welcome our new Aston Villa correspondent, Lee Jackson. How are you, Lee?
I'm very good. Thanks, James. You guys
James,
right?
You know, on that breaking news, stop hitting refresh, and your internet will be perfectly fine.
So those who've been listening to the Correspondent Week podcast so far this week will know that we've been saying we're pre-recording this by 2 days or whatever. This time I'm literally going to say we are pre-recording this at 3:30 p.m. UK time on Tuesday, the 4th of August. And the reason I'm specifically saying that...
Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday, the 4th of August. Thanks, Suj. We believe Jack Grealish is currently in Manchester, about to complete a £100 million move to Manchester City. Lee, can we get your thoughts on Grealish going?
I'm just in denial. I'm just refuse to acknowledge it. Nah, it's not happening. Not until I see him in that shirt.
Are you really completely in denial? You won't accept it at the moment? Or?
No. I've come to terms with it. It felt like over the weekend we saw pictures of them training. He looked really happy, back in the Villa shirt, and it kind of raised that hope, that false expectation. But now it's got to a point where, you've got to kind of accept it. And he's getting a lot of stick on Twitter from the Villa fan base, which I think is fair enough to an extent. I mean, everyone's heartbroken. We're going to lose our best player by a long way. But at the same time, we wouldn't be in the Premier League without him. He's been an incredible servant, and he's going to go and win trophies at Man City.
He deserves a stick, Lee, because like you said, he gave you the hope. He turned up back at training and he put the shirt back on. At least Harry Kane didn't give these guys hope and just didn't bother turning up again and give them the false, that moment of maybe.
This is true.
Yeah, I suspect Jack just turned up to say his goodbyes, and Harry Kane said his goodbyes to his teammates in May, if you believe the reports at time of recording. So I suspect that's what it was with Villa and stuff. How do you see him as a City asset? Obviously, we're going to come on to Villa assets, and you made some unbelievable signings this summer. How do you see him as a City asset at 8 million?
I really don't know. I mean, they're talking about him playing a deeper position, this number 8 role. Absolutely, he can play that position. We've seen him play a number of positions at Villa, and he's been fantastic in all of them, quite frankly. But his strongest position at Villa has always been on that left wing, cutting inside, playing incredibly good passes forward to the strikers to create chances. But yeah, from what I've read online, it sounds like Pep's vision for him is that he'll play that kind of number 8 role, which obviously damages Gundogan as a option in FPL.
I'm a big advocate of Jack Grealish playing in that role. I'd like to have seen him play there for England in the summer, because as far as I'm concerned, he's the most naturally gifted footballer that England have, certainly in the midfield area. And I believe he's good enough. Once he's on you never feel like you can get the ball off him. So I don't believe people say, he can't play centrally. And obviously for City, they're going to have circa 65% of ball on average in games. So he's not so much of a problem to get caught out if he loses it. He's not going to, is he? I think more the point probably is you can expect to see a different Jack Grealish, because the best Jack Grealish last year, I think of instances like when he shoved Bellerin off the ball at the Emirates and going and running at people. And it's difficult to see, and I think that's part why Guardiola is thinking of using him differently, is it's difficult to see him having that opportunity to do that in a Manchester City shirt, actually, because teams will obviously set up deeper, they'll have a slower build-up, etc. So I think that's the thinking. Not an FPL option, in my opinion.
Not to start with.
No.
I think we talked about Ben White's Brighton to Arsenal deal as being a good deal for everybody. Good deal for Arsenal, good deal for Brighton, and a good deal for Ben White. I do think this has got the added kind of emotion of him being a homegrown player, but I think it's a good deal for everybody. I think Villa are getting a hell of a lot of money. Man City are getting a hell of a player in Jack Grealish at the right age of 25, and he's going on to perform at the top level where he should be showcasing his ability. I think it feels to me, from your point of view, it's going to be different because of the emotion, but from an outsider's point of view, it's a good deal for everybody. And I'm still shocked how young he is. It feels like he's been here forever. He's only 25 still, but it feels like he's been playing for Villa for years. Well, he has been playing for Villa for years, but
yeah.
And
that's the other thing when the fans are giving him stick. It's like, well, he did stick by us when we were in the Championship.
Correct.
Because let's be fair, he could have probably got a move to a lower half Premier League team at that point and just cut his losses, but he didn't. The other thing I wanted to say around the Man City setup is you're not probably going to see when teams play against Man City with Grealish in next season what we saw last season, where you had West Ham doubling up, putting 2 players on Grealish.
Yeah,
because he's no longer the danger man. You're going to have Sterling and Mahrez and De Bruyne and whoever else. So I think he's going to have more freedom at Man City, where they're going to be so preoccupied with all the other talent they're playing against that they can't afford to mark Grealish out the game, which we saw against West Ham last season to an extent.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about City too much now, but that attacking midfield now, to add him to it.
It's funny because you said, James, you said that the words were the best midfielder that we have in England, and then I was just thinking in the back of my mind, has James forgotten about Foden? Because I feel like you think the same thing about that guy as well.
I think Foden could become that player. It's just not quite yet. But I don't need to state how much I rate Phil Foden, unbelievable player. And I think Foden eventually will end up as a central player as well, actually. But the moment you think of a 4 behind the front man who we know who that could be, of Grealish, De Bruyne, Mahrez, Foden, we're not even mentioning Sterling, like Torres, wow, Ferran Torres, etc. Disgusting. Yeah, Ferran Torres off the table. Like, forget him. Done. It's done. Not starting with Man City players. It's too much of a headache. Let's talk about your squad, Lee, because you have made some very good signings, but I kind of want to run through the squad from back to front if I can, and start with the fact you've got the best 3 fixtures by a mile on paper. 2 promoted teams and Newcastle United at home. You barely ask for a better. You do have a very tough period from game week 4 onwards. So we're looking very short term for a lot of Villa assets, I think, which is something I find particularly difficult because I like to think longer term, but I don't want to be holding 3 Villa players from game week 4 onwards, I don't think. So it makes starting with, if you'd have had a brilliant opening schedule of sustained, honestly, you've got some good players and some good options. Martinez at 5.5, he's monster owned, but doesn't feel like he is by anyone in the Twitter community, as far as I can see. What's your feelings on paying 5.5 for him? Because obviously you could leave him for sure.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely justified at 5.5. I think when the prices were about to be revealed, I messaged you and said, wouldn't be surprised if he's 6. He got 186 points last season for a goalie. That's the most a goalie's ever got in FPL since Brad Friedel in 2003. Like, that's the levels we're talking about. He is so good. He got 27 bonus points last season.
That's a hell of a lot of BPS.
It's obscene.
That wasn't in 2003, Friedel. Wasn't that with you in like 2010 or something? I want to say.
No, it was the Blackburn season.
Really?
He had some.
Did this game exist that long ago?
Yeah, I had to Google it, but I was interested to see. That's the last time a goalie scored more than Martinez.
Wow.
That's how good he is.
When you see kind of outliers like 27 BPS, there wasn't. It was only the 1 penalty save in there as well. It wasn't like he had 3 or 4 penalty saves bumping up the numbers as well. It comes down to sustainability. And can you replicate it again?
And honestly, we got 15 clean sheets last season. Do I think we will get 15 clean sheets next season? Probably not. We rode our luck at times last season. But even if we get 12 or 13, Martinez could still be on 160, 170 points. And out those first three, like you say, we've got such a good opening. You wouldn't be surprised at all if you were sat at the end of that and Martinez has got 18 points from those three fixtures. He so often hits double digits and bonuses.
One of the main reasons you did keep so many clean sheets was Emi Martinez.
Yeah.
Looking at the data, and you wonder if there's kind of any outliers. Like, was there looking back on it, was there a nominal amount of penalty save? No, there was just one from John Lundstrom right at the start of the season. So only the one penalty save, 27 bonus points. It's mad.
It's unreal. 142 saves.
And that's and that's part why. And the thing is, if Martinez can get anywhere near that point total again, he is absolutely worth 5.5 million.
Exactly. I think it's largely though the template and the Twitter bubble is that's not how you set your team up. You don't go for a 5.5 goalie. You go for a 4.5 goalie, or you go for two 4.5 goalies. And that is just, historically, it's been the best option. But the problem is there's so many 4.5s. How do you know you're going to get the right one?
Yeah, no, that is part of the issue. One of my concerns about Martinez is the fact that ownership is high. And there's a fair chance that somebody way below is going to start the season very well. And people are going to move to that from Martinez, etc. It's interesting because this time last year, I feel like we were having very similar conversations about Nick Pope.
Yeah.
Now, Nick Pope the year before got 170 points, which also shouldn't be sniffed at. I mean, exactly that. If Martinez gets to 170 points, he's worth that 5.5 million as far as I'm concerned. Nick Pope got 144 last year and missed minutes. So he missed 5 or 6 games, 11 clean sheets as opposed to 15 the year before. So let's say Villa have a drop off of 4 clean sheets. And let's just say that Martinez stays fit all season. It would be reasonable to suggest he will surpass 150 plus points again. And that, again, I think that just about makes him worth it. And I've got a problem because I want to go with Sanchez a little bit, but I think there are alternatives at Brighton to consider, as we discussed with Sam on the last pod. I'd kind of decided I was going to go up to Henderson to give me some Man United coverage. That's obviously kind of fallen away now. And I'm wondering if coming back to Martinez, it's going to be brutal. If Villa keep 3 clean sheets to start with and he's 40% owned, there's every chance he's starting the season 25 points after 3 games or so because it's him.
If you're going premium, and I understand again, see for me, James, the debate is then go whole hog and whack 6 million on Ederson, because if we're not getting attacking City assets to begin with, because we don't know where to start with, we're not worried about tying up one of our 3 Manchester City slots. Last year, Ederson, I had a cheeky look, 3 bonus points all season compared to 27 for Martinez, but then 19 clean sheets. I think the clean sheets for Man City is more likely to be replicated than the clean sheets for Aston Villa. The saves is incredible. So Martinez, according to FPL stats, 142 saves. Ederson had to make 66 saves all season. There's nearly like 2.5 times as many saves he's had to make. And Ederson's been consistently 158, 169, 133 with reduced minutes, 160. Ederson's a banker for 160 points either side.
You did a maths on that, Suj. What's 19 times 6? Is that 114?
19 times 6 would be 60 plus 54. So yeah, 114.
Yeah. And then add in 38 times 2.
122, 152. Sorry.
No, more than that. 38 times 76.
Sorry, 38 times 2, you said, sorry.
That should take him up to 190. Is that right?
Yes.
In fact, there would have been, no, I don't need to add on appearance points, do I?
But it's 4 points for a clean sheet, not 6. Yeah.
Sorry, I already did that in the first calculation.
But he scored 160 points.
But that's the point. There's not much extra coming there. So you're looking, what, an extra point on
top
of that?
It's not about the extra. It's about the predictability of it. See, with Ederson, 160, I'd give you odds on. Martinez getting the same again, not necessarily.
Sorry, I worked out the calculator. You need to add on 38, don't you? 19 times 2.
Yeah.
So an extra 38 on top of 100. That gives you what, 152 roughly?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then a little bit extra for the
3
penalty
bonus
save
points
against.
and he saved 1 penalty.
There you go.
And the assist.
That's it. That's his
Let's
points.
not forget the assist.
Like I've forgotten the assist. Davinson Sanchez is still picking his face up off the floor, the fucking idiot. Anyway, right. we've moved well away. But that's the point. That's why Martinez.
It's not a bad shot. If you need to save $500,000, then yeah, Martinez as a premium is a good option. If I was going premium with my goalkeeper because I didn't have any budget concerns, for me, I'd just go whole hog and go Edison though.
Are you considering starting with him, Lee?
He's in my team at the moment, but
Nice.
He's been in and out my team about 3 times in the last month.
And what are you considering as alternatives to him?
Sanchez and is it Bachmann, the Watford goalie?
It's the same names all the way through
All
on
the time.
goalkeepers. Everyone we speak to seems to be the same names. Any consideration on the defenders, Lee? And do you expect the back four to start as we would expect, or can Ashley Young put a bit of pressure on?
Well, this is it. Ashley Young's started every pre-season match, and he started every pre-season match at left back. So I think Target's appeal is dampened a little because of that. But at 5 million across the back four, it just feels like too much, especially when for 0.5 more, you could go to Martinez. I think that's where the value is, not in the defence. If you're going to go for one, Cash feels safer to me because he gets forward almost as much as Target, but he hasn't got the risk of a Ashley Young lurking in the background to take minutes from him.
Are you surprised they're all priced at 5 million?
Yeah, I feel like they could have at least gone, okay, Target gets forward 5 million, Cash gets forward 5 million, Conser Mings don't score many goals, 4.5. I think it is a bit harsh putting them at 5.
I think our friend Tom Campbell had a stat that you'd conceded the second most shots in the last 10 game weeks or so. But the thing is, to go circles again, what did we say so much last season, Suj? 2 different teams, one with Grealish and one without.
Yep.
And that suddenly does become a concern. Yep. Now, listen, you've got new players coming into the team to replace that a little bit this year.
It's not even, and it's funny how, I mean, Grealish is an attacking player, but what he gives defensively in that respite, like you give the ball to him and he'll win a free kick and take the pressure off.
Totally.
And it's just so good at that. I love watching him do it because he's going to do it. You just can't do anything about it. The way he nicks the ball away, wins a foul. And that's part of the reason you were able to defend so well as well. I'm looking at Mings.
Pressure off the defence, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Mings, Conser, James, 128 points, 119. You've got Sufal is 128 points. He's 5 million. So I think they've just kind of taken that 120 points, £5 million as a blanket kind of rule on defenders.
If you had to buy Mings or Conser, Lee, where would you go?
Mings. Because I think he's going to be club captain and he won't get rotated, whereas there's always a chance Horse could come in for Conser.
Don't see that personally at the moment. I think Esri Conser had a great season. I kept having whispers in my ear last year that Conser had a better season than Mings from a lot of Villa fans, although I think he dipped a little bit as the season went on.
Yeah, I wouldn't have disagreed with that last season, that Conser was a better defender at times than Mings. Mings does seem to have a brain fart moment in him where he'll just do something really daft. I don't think there's much between the two of them, and I don't think either of them are great options.
Okay. Matty Cash?
That price. Yeah, Matty Cash more so, just because there is assist potential there.
Yeah, his numbers a little bit skewed by obviously the fact he missed quite a few minutes as the season went on due to injury and stuff. Yeah. But potential to kick on again this year, I think. Into central midfield, John McGinn's a nailed starter for you, isn't he, Lee? Who's likely to start with him in that area? And are you expecting a midfield 2 or a midfield 3? I
think we'll probably... It's really hard to say when you've got Buendia coming in and Bailey coming in. So we've got some new signings in there, so it's hard to know. I would say the most likely thing from what we've seen in pre-season is that will be 2 holding midfielders again, probably McGinn and Louise. Although Marvellous Nakamba has shown that he can do that job very well when needed. Unglamorous, does all the dirty work, interceptions, the Conte role in there. But I think that's probably the most likely midfield pairing is McGinn and Louise.
I've heard some rumours Louise might go.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that.
I blame Adam Pritchard for that. That's 2 podcasts we can blame him on this week, actually, Suj. Would you have any interest in him as a 4.5? Because the Canberra played, he played at Tottenham in game week 37, certainly, and he was very good. I think he shields better than Louise. I thought Louise had a really good opening 3-4 months of the season, and actually it was probably the best in his position, in my opinion, for that first half of the season. Once your results dipped, so did he.
Yeah,
in my opinion. I think the season became quite long for him. But I do like him as a player. He's still quite young. He's got plenty of scope to improve. You think Louise the more likely to play, though?
I think so, yeah.
There are another two. There are another 2 to add to that 4.5 million mix, where there's enough doubt versus like Louise versus Basuma, where there's the no doubt with Basuma, there is the doubt with Louise, which is a little bit annoying because Louise will score the odd goal as well occasionally. That we're talking 2 or 3 a season, but he will get the odd one. But I don't think it's 100% nailed. John McGinn at 6, too much, isn't it, Lee?
Yeah.
Particularly with the 2 incoming players. We do have a price on Leon Bailey. It's confirmed at 6.5 million. So now we've got Buendia versus Bailey. I know this is very new news to you, Lee, but what's your thoughts on that as a battle and a choice between the 2?
It's really hard. I almost wish that Villa didn't have such a good opening fixtures, because then you could kind of sit back and watch, but you've got to make a decision. And I think based on the fact he's played in the Premier League before, Buendia feels like the safer option. But if you feel like taking a risk, 0.1% owned Bailey at 6.5, certainly the people who've watched him for Leverkusen last season seem to be raving about him, saying, wow, you've got a real talent here.
You have.
I heard that Bailey could play up top with Watkins pushing out to the left. I don't know enough about Leon Bailey to know if that's a possibility, but I'd be interested in your thoughts, guys, and if that's something, because I'm not sure what that does for Watkins' appeal necessarily.
That would certainly push Bailey's appeal up, wouldn't it, if he was that far forward? We've got a friendly on Saturday against Sevilla, which I'm going to. Long last return to Villa Park. So hopefully we'll get to see how they set up for that, and that might be a full strength 11, hopefully. I mean, Martinez and Mings are now back training with the squad. Grealish, back training with the squad.
At time of recording.
Imagine this comes out in 48 hours and we look like ripe plums when City pulled out the deal or something.
Please.
I mean, you obviously won't complain, Lee. I don't think just on that. I think we have to assume at the moment, the time recording, that Grealish is going. I think him going, or even if he did stay, if something happened and he stayed, I don't think will affect where I think Buendia and Bailey will play. I think Buendia will play at 10 and he'll pick up the role which another player who started the season really well for you, Ross Barkley, and then just died off completely. And I assume there's, from his lack of minutes towards the end of the season, there's no interest in taking him back. Bailey can play on either side on the wing, but predominantly for Leverkusen last year played mainly on the right-hand side, often in a 4-3-3. But I think because you've got Buendia, I wouldn't see him playing left of a front 3. That makes me think you're more likely to play that system that we really saw when Barkley was in the team, 4-2-3-1. And that currently leaves a space on the left for possibly the greediest player in the league, Mr. El Ghazi, Lee. Is that a ridiculous opening punt?
I don't think it's ridiculous, but it's not for me. I think Traore is above him in the pecking order, and I know Traore likes to play on the right. But yeah, it just feels like El Ghazi's minutes are far from nailed. So no, not for me.
Yeah, it definitely could be Traore on the right, Bailey on the left. Or I think just as easily it could be El Ghazi and Traore start, and Bailey might not start game week 1, for example. And I think it's that again. We said it on one of the pods earlier this week that probably anyone coming in now at this stage has to be doubtful to be starting in game week 1 unless they've already had a full pre-season at somewhere else in England.
Yeah, and that was the case last year with Traore. We signed him quite late in the summer and he didn't start the first few games, and then he came on as a sub a bit, and then by the end of the season he was starting every game. So it may well be like you said.
I don't really like starting with new signings in my FPL team. Buendia is at the moment he's in, but he's very 50-50 for me.
Mm.
But I like the fact the deal was done early. He's played in all your preseason friendlies, basically. He's been training since the start of training started. The deal was done, in June, was it? I think, Lee?
Yeah.
He's been with you since day one on trainings. He's had the full preseason. I like that. I also like exactly what you said. I know his capabilities. A lot of us were familiar with his numbers in the Premier League, which never equated to FPL returns for Norwich 2 years ago. Last year, he obviously finally went off quite big in the Championship. If he can do anywhere near them numbers statistically in the Premier League, he'll prove to be a very good 6.5 billion asset. So I think from the midfielders, even with Bailey coming in, I think for game week 1 would have to be Buendia now, I think.
It's interesting because the next pod is with Badger from Norwich. It'd be an interesting question to ask him. How do you think second time round Buendia will translate to the Premier League? Because I haven't had him in any drafts, to be honest with you, since I put my team together. And he's in the back of my mind, but I'm just nervous about him translating the returns. So I'm avoiding it. But I'll be interested to see what Mark thinks as well. I mean, Villa, compared to some of the clubs in and around where Villa are, and we've spoken to Sam at Brighton and a few other clubs, have a lot of depth. And a lot of clubs are struggling with depth. As their first, even Leeds, we talked about, the first team get injured, you don't know where you're going. Villa are the opposite, actually. It's why I think you're more likely to get into the top half of the table than some of these other clubs, because you've got depth. And if you get a few injuries, well, there's players to come in. So that's got to be a real positive going into the season. Not from FNFPL point of view, unfortunately, because where'd you go?
Yeah. No, I'm quietly optimistic. I think we've made some shrewd signings. We're apparently going back in for James Ward-Prowse. We've also been rumoured with Tammy Abraham on the last few days. Axel Twanzebe, who helped us get promotion a couple of years ago. We've got 100 million more to spend potentially now, unless that money that we spent earlier in the summer was with the Grealish sale in mind. But yeah, I don't feel as annoyed as I thought I would with Grealish going, just because of how well we seem to have spent money this summer. So,
I mean, James mentioned it about Spurs, right? It's all well and good. You don't want to lose Kane, but if you get 130 million, it buys you 4 players that rejuvenate the squad. And the thing is, you guys have done that, and you are buying players, and all of the signings so far are decent signings. There's no ringers in there necessarily.
I suspect this Grealish deal was done 6 months ago. That was when we first mentioned it. We'd had a tip off.
When he disappeared with an injury that was going to be next week,
but I think he legitimately did have the injury.
And then next week, it kind of was a 1 week injury that was kicked forward for about 5 weeks in the end, wasn't it?
Well, no one's going to believe Dean Smith if he says similar this year. He'll be back next week. He'll be back. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah. Are you likely to start with Buendia at the moment, Lee?
Yeah, he's in my team at the moment.
He's in.
Yeah, I just think for those opening 3, you put him in there. And it's so easy to move off when you've got players in and around that price point. I was listening to the pod with Stephen Toomey earlier. So you've got Sarr there, you've got Rafinha, same price. Harrison, even some of the West Ham boys, if you like, if you want to go to a Suchek or a Bowen.
Bergwijn.
Yeah.
Lucas.
Not so much.
he got a great goal against Villa. Just a shame he didn't do anything else for the last 6 months of last season.
No, I'm only joking.
I obviously was, mate. I take it that's going to be treble Villa in your squad then, mate.
Yeah.
Watkins has got to be in, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Until you tell me this Wesley.
Yeah. Actually, guys, cut off the press after his red card at Stoke.
36.5% is quite high relative to the fact that there are so many options in that price bracket, in that position. So, I mean, Antonio is so low relative to that. He's only at 13%, so 3 times as many people. I think it's with the fixtures in mind. But when you get a real spread of options, the ownership does get divided quite a bit. But for Watkins to be at 36 point something percent, he's definitely going to be in a lot of teams. So he's in my team and hasn't moved from it.
The risk with that, though, is if he does blank in the first couple of game weeks, everyone's going to jump off and that price is going to drop, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the safety net of it probably is for the majority. And we know there are, let's say, less engaged players who, if he blanks in game week 1 and Iheanacho goes and gets a hat-trick against Wolves, we know that there are people that are going to make that transfer. We know that. But for the majority of players, with Newcastle at home, if he blanks in the first game, and then Brentford at home, even if he blanks in the second game, I think you're suffering the 3 games, aren't you? You have to. You can't just come off just because every player's losing price value. I think you've got to keep that. But the plan for the majority is exactly that, isn't it? 3 games and bin. And then you've got some certain teams who've got turns from game week 4, Wolves particularly. I mean, Watkins to Jimenez, as it stands, are the same price. And that is the start of an incredible run for Wolves for game week 4. So I think that's the sort of transfer people have got in mind. You have similar thinking to that, Lee?
Yeah, Calvert-Lewin's the one for me. So if I went up 0.5, Everton home to Burnley in game week 4, Villa in game week 5, and Norwich at home game week 6.
So you're getting Calvert-Lewin in because he's got Villa 2 weeks later. Am I reading that right, mate?
No, it's more the other ones. But Villa aren't a bad fixture, are they, by any means?
No, I get that. Burnley at home in 4, Norwich at home in 6, Watford at home at 9. It's possible outside captaincy cover for a couple of those fixtures as well, actually. Yeah, don't mind that as a shout. But yeah, most people, I think with Watkins, because the amount of value in at that price, like Martinez, I think if you get it's a hold, isn't it? You just go with it unless he's hemorrhaging value for you and it's obvious that there's probably not a new Martinez, but Backman really breaks out at 4.5 or Raya at Brentford or whatever. Unless someone else really breaks out, I think you hold on to him. I think Buendia is probably similarly as a hold, possibly. But in the case of Watkins, I really think it's been. I think Watkins for me, I think could get 6 goals in those first 3 games, and I'd probably still sell him in game week 4.
I don't know, James. If he got 6 in the first 3, I mean, it's unlikely, but it looks like a sea of red on the FPL website in their fixtures, but they've got Everton at home. I mean, Villa will give Everton a game. Tottenham away. Defensively, you've got Romero coming in, but you're not the strongest defensively. And Arsenal. So, yeah, I see Chelsea, Man United, granted, but Everton, Tottenham, Wolves, Arsenal, you'll give all of them a game. And the thing we see with Watkins from last season, right? What was it 14 goals, 9 assists, 23 attacking returns? You might lose a couple of those games, but if you pick up a goal or 2, there's a strong chance that he might be involved. So if he's in form, I don't mind holding on to Watkins. And the other reason that I might hold on to Watkins is because my other striker who's 7.5 is Antonio, and he's going to be injured by game week 4. So I'm going to need to be selling him instead.
Yeah, I think the other one at that price point that we haven't spoken about is Wilson. So he's in my team as well.
Yeah.
4.9% ownership. That's low.
Definite. And in Wilson's case as well, definite talisman. What's he involved in 40% of their goals last year, I think, Newcastle. So, I mean, we spoke about it with Sai, FPL footballer. And there were reports since we recorded that he picked up a hamstring injury, but I understand that's just precautionary and there's no issue and he'll probably play this weekend. What would your thinking be for? Because for me, Watkins is 100% as it stands now. I'm definitely starting with him. But there have been, as you mentioned, Tammy Abraham rumours, and again we have to emphasise at time of recording. But if he came in, that's a potential big impact to Watkins, isn't he? And he's another one. Like he scored for Chelsea the other day, so he'd be one who would be ready to come straight in the team. Yeah,
I think if Tammy signed for us, that massively dampens Watkins' appeal. Because there's a good chance he could get pushed out wide, potentially.
Is that what you'd see happening?
I think potentially, yeah. He has played out wide on occasion.
I know he did for Dean Smith at Brentford as well, definitely.
Yeah. He played out wide briefly, sort of floated out wide in the pre-season match against Bristol City at the weekend, and he scored a great cross in that match. But, yeah, he hasn't got the same appeal if he's out wide.
Yeah, it would suddenly become shit. It really would.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people would be rubbing their hands. Oh, Tammy Abraham at 6.5, but I'm not sure I'd start. Would you start with Abraham instead?
It's hard, isn't it? Because you don't know if he's going to come in the side. If you told me he's starting game week 1, centre forward, 6.5, and probably on pens, then yeah, I would go Tammy Abraham game week 1.
Would you consider starting with both?
No, I don't think so.
That would be mad, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think because
Treble Villa attack, Buendia, Watkins, and Abraham.
No, I think I'm set on Martinez now, though, so that would block that for me anyway, personally.
Yeah, I might be leaning back to Martinez, Suj. You're in with Watkins, though. Is Watkins the only one for you at the moment?
For me, Watkins is the only one. I can't see myself going to Martinez, to be honest with you. And Buendia may be the only other one I go to. I don't actually think Tammy Abraham will sign for Villa. I don't think that's a transfer that's likely to happen. I'd give it not even 50%, but you never know. I don't want to give, if I treble up on Villa, I don't want to give myself that problem of having to use a lot of transfers to come off after game week 3 if I don't like what I see. So one's enough for me. Ollie Watkins is enough for me, and I'm spreading my risk elsewhere. And I've got Ismail Assar as a bit of a risky pick. Smith Rowe is a bit of a risky pick. So
I don't know why you're telling everyone your team be different next week, mate.
To be honest, the interesting thing with Correspondent Week so far is that the learning from the correspondence is pretty much what we've thought. There's so much groupthink there now. I haven't really deviated away. So the only other one that I may go to from Villa would be Target, and that would very much be a first 3 weeks and off. Watkins, I could see myself holding on for longer, but Target would be 3 weeks and off.
But as Lee said, Young's been playing left back all the friendlies. That's risky now, isn't it? I think if you wanted to do that, you'd go cash. Would that be fair, Lee?
For me, yeah. I think if against Sevilla at the weekend, if we start with Target, Mings, Concert, Cash, that back four, then you're probably thinking, right, he's played his full strength.
Target's playing.
Target's okay. But if he starts with Young again on Saturday, I don't think you can touch Target. Don't think you can touch him. Absolutely
great. I think Target avoidable now. And I would have said of the 5.0 defenders pre the friendlies, I'd have said, yeah, him outscored the others. Obviously had great link with Grealish last year on the left-hand side. We know that, but it's very capable. It would have been him. I don't think it can be unless the information from that friendly at the weekend changes. I agree with Lee. If Target starts, it's probably safe. If he doesn't, I don't think you can go there and you go the other side cash.
Yeah.
Or I cannot rule myself going for Martinez now, I think. I will not rule it out because the more I look at them,
186
exactly. The more, like honestly, if you're talking about a defender or a midfielder or a forward at that price, and you could get anywhere near them points, he's in. If I said to you now on a defender, midfielder, forward at 5.5, they're going to get you 150 points. You buy it. You're buying that player. For Martinez to get 150 points, we're talking about what, a 36-point drop-off?
Yeah, exactly.
That's like a point less a week. And I'm not sure it's going to drop off. I mean, none of us are in a position now. I don't think, no one's thinking Grealish is gone, Villa are in a relegation fight. Do any of us think that?
Not even, no.
Like, where do you expect to finish?
10th, 11th for Villa would be, yeah.
Yeah, like Suj says, I think 11th, 10th is where I would expect us to finish. And I think what good looks like is top half.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where you'll be, roughly 9th to 12th. I think 12th would be a bad season for you, and I think 9th would probably be a good season. I think to push on next, if you'd have bought these players and Grealish was still there, I genuinely think 6th, 7th could have. And it's worth saying, we don't know what you're going to do with the money yet. We don't know if what's been spent is because of him or it was kind of pre-budgeted as part of it, and now that money's there again to spend, which by the sounds of it could very easily go on Tammy Abraham and James Ward-Prowse if Villa now decide they want to go higher. James Ward-Prowse, by the way, I noticed because we only recorded yesterday with Matt, our Southampton correspondent, and he played every minute last 2 years. Bastard's conveniently got an injury all of a sudden, isn't
it? Is it? He's not training, is he? This is the new thing.
What did I say about Kane? Listen, if suddenly he's got an ankle niggle, well, I didn't anticipate him just not coming to training, actually. But yeah, James Ward-Prowse is apparently now doubtful for game week 1, supposedly.
We'll treat him with that injury at Bodymore Heath. But
if Villa suddenly decide, and I think it would be excessive, but if Villa suddenly go to Southampton, yeah, sod it, you want £50 million, we've now got it, bang, you'll go to Villa.
I just think Villa, obviously, look, the first season was difficult. And it is for so many clubs when you get promoted all the way down to the final day of the season. We let you have that draw, kind of, sort of, not really, but you deserve to stay up. What's happened since then is you've made the right signings and the moves to establish yourself as a Premier League club. Like I feel like Villa belong in the Premier League. There's a couple of clubs that we spoke to, like Palace. It wouldn't surprise me if they slipped into a dogfight. Southampton, if they slipped into a dogfight. I don't feel Villa are anywhere near that. I feel Villa now are making moves to be an established Premier League side. James and I talk about there's 12, 13, 14 teams in the Premier League that not bothered about relegation because they'll always be there or thereabouts. And Villa are into that block.
But I bet Villa's the sort of club that still won't vote to get rid of parachute payments, for example. Just by the way.
Just insurance policy, isn't
exactly.
it, really? Yeah, so, I think 11, 12 would be decent for Villa. And we'd definitely be dipping in and out of Villa assets all season.
I'm not sure I would call it decent. I think exactly what Lee said. Top half with Grealish going would look good this year on a third season in the Premier League, kind of improving again. Did you finish 10th last year, Lee?
11th.
Finish 11th. But I think it was the highest points total for anyone to ever finish 11th, I want to say.
It was.
I think, yeah. So if you get that points total again, you'll probably finish top half this season, I would have thought, actually. And you're very capable of doing that. I think it depends on sides around you, right? Everton, West Ham, the Brighton suddenly become a really good side. It would depend a bit on that. But if you hit similar points to last season, you probably will finish 9th or 10th this year, I should imagine. And I think you're very capable. I wouldn't see you finishing lower than 12th. Personally, I cannot see you being. We've seen players leave clubs in the past, and suddenly it's overnight gone to shit. And there is a little bit of concern that without Grealish last year, you did look shit.
We were rubbish,
but I think Buendia and Bailey, and the fact there's probably more incomings, make me think no concern.
Lee, do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you on Twitter as a new correspondent? Some may obviously have not come across you before. Where can they follow you, find you, and see your tweets about Villa and everything else?
Yeah, it's Lee_Jackson_92.
That's the one.
So most of the correspondents have one underscore and can't remember it, but Lee is new to the job. He's got 2 of them. And he's got it right straight away. Well done, man.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and joining us and giving us a rundown on Villa. So, James, we're off to Norfolk now, are we?
Yeah, what road's that?
What road?
Yeah, you're always telling me roads. What's the road from Villa Park to Carrow Road?
Carrow Road is where we're heading to with Badger. I think Mark, FPL Badger, is one of the correspondents that gets to watch so much football live. He's pretty much always there or thereabouts. So always love having a chat with him. If you want to stay tuned for that, make sure you're subscribed wherever you are listening to.
We'll ask him about Buendia.
We will. So whether it's iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever it may be, hit the subscribe button and you'll know as soon as that pod goes live. Other than that, thanks again, Lee. Stay safe, everybody. Ciao for now.
Thanks, Lee. Good debut, mate. Be nice to each other, everyone. Cue music, please, man-child. No, man-child, do not cue the music. So after we finished recording, Suj and I went off and recorded another pod with FPL Badger for Norwich. And then I sat down on the sofa and then Aston Villa casually dropped a tweet saying, we've signed Danny Ings. And there was not even a rumor about it. No silly link in some shitty tabloid newspaper. Nothing. This came absolutely from nowhere. Me and Lee have had a good laugh about it. And Lee very kindly now on Thursday morning has rejoined me briefly just to give an update on his feelings now. So Danny Ings, an Aston Villa player. How do you feel, mate?
In short, delighted.
Yeah, you should be.
Proven goal scorer, 22 goals 2 years ago. Really, really happy. Obviously 29, injury prone. But if we can get even a smidgen of what he's capable of out of him, it's really exciting. Really good.
46 goals in 100 games for Southampton.
Nice.
He's a 1 in 2 striker and he's obviously capable of doing more playing with respect to Southampton. We think likely better players in a higher position up the table. 8 million. What do you think?
I like it. I think he'll be on pens.
Yeah, you would think so.
Adds to his appeal. I like it, but I think you've got to see how they line up first. Because one of my good friends is a Southampton fan. He was like, "Oh, why is Ings left to go and warm the bench at Villa?" I was like,
I don't think so, mate.
Don't think he is. Don't think
No.
he will be. But you don't know. I mean, he's a pacey player. He could be used as an impact player off the bench. But no, my gut feel says he starts up top in the middle. Watkins gets pushed out wide, and then probably Bailey on the right with Buendia in number 10.
So one of the things the listeners might have heard me say over the last week or so is Watkins 100% for me. Clearly, that's not the case anymore. We did on the podcast speak about the idea of Tammy Abraham, who had been linked and obviously played for you when you were in the Championship on loan. This came from nowhere. Is that we really think Watkins go and play wide? Because obviously, as we spoke about, he did do that a lot for Brentford.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the most likely thing that happens. And my initial reaction when I heard it was, right, Watkins is out my team. Like, I can't be doing with that. Don't know how it's going to work. But the more I think about it, he's still only 7.5. He got 9 assists last season. So he's more than capable of putting it on a plate for Danny Ings. You've got a fantastic finisher in the box. So it's 50-50 for me now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
And one way or the other, he will definitely still start, wasn't he? Because I think everybody's immediate reaction is he's got to go. But actually, has he got to go when you've still got those first 3 fixtures for a very short term at the start? We know we hate the idea of reverse OOPs, or as Tom Cantwell, who got the assist calls and poos. We hate the idea of it, but you've still got wide forward for Villa if that's how he plays with 3 brilliant opening fixtures. It's not a definite bin for me yet. No. Although I'm not 100% having him either.
Yeah, it's 50-50 for me. I think the one who really benefits from Ings signing is Buendia, because you've just got another fantastic finisher on the pitch. You've now got Watkins and Ings, who are both capable of scoring plenty of goals. Buendia being the main provider, I think his appeal shoots up significantly.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. A lot of people's reaction as well is, I think it caught people by so much surprise, and it might need a few days of settling down. That a lot of people's reaction was, "I'm having no Villa to start with. Like, I can't deal with it. I don't know what's happening. It's confused me. I'm just gonna steer clear." Well, I think
have a look at the fixtures.
People settle back down, and I think, listen, I think Watkins is probably going to be more higher owned when the game starts than what people currently think. Because I think people will still settle down and think, okay, look, 3 good fixtures. The other thing is, does it definitely mean he goes wide? I mean, there are 2 alternative options here, I think. One is a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-2-2, similar to our Southampton play.
Yeah.
So you could have Buendia and Bailey coming off starting wide positions and sit centrally behind them and get the fullbacks higher. We know Matty Cash likes to bomb on. Matt Target or Ashley Young other side should be fine. And the other one's 3 at the back. Is something like a 3-4-1-2 with Buendia behind the possibility, but then that means no place for Bailey.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But it could happen. You're absolutely right. It could happen. And that's the biggest problem, I think, with this transfer, is it's made everyone go, oh, shit, how are Villa going to line up? I'm not sure.
Could you imagine everyone takes Watkins out and then Watkins and Ings start up front together in a 4-4-2 on the opening day?
Yeah, exactly.
I think we need to give this some thought. You're going to Villa Park at the weekend, aren't you?
I am. I'll take my notepad.
Yeah, please do. It's against Seville, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
When is it?
Saturday, 3:00.
One of the keenly watched pre-season friendlies at the weekend. I don't suppose anyone would be picking up dodgy stream for it other than Villa fans, but do let us know on Twitter what you see, mate, because I think the personnel, we might not get anything. Like Ings might not be involved, right? Which then makes him really difficult to start with. But if the system's got to give us some sort of clue. If you suddenly start a back 3, or if he plays Watkins and another and plays 4-4-2 up front, for example,
interesting.
I think that's the big clue. I don't think it's definitely been Watkins yet, but of course he's not 100% for me anymore.
No. Interesting. It wouldn't be FPL pre-season without a few curveballs.
Well, this is why, Lee, I say all the time, stop with the overthinking. Stop with the people say, oh, my team's locked in. That's it. I'm done. You're not. Like, the transfer window, the last couple of years feel like the season start and we've gone, oh, it's quite quiet. These last few days have been crazy. And in terms of us trying to record Correspondent Week podcasts in advance, it's become a bit of a nightmare. I think Adam Armstrong's been linked with 3 of the clubs we've got podcasts coming up with from the point I'm speaking to you, and he could go to any of them, for example. He won't be going to Villa. I'm fairly sure of that. Do you think you'll spend more?
I think it's 50-50. If we did spend more, I wouldn't be surprised. But if that was it, again, I wouldn't be surprised because we've already made some really big signings, haven't we?
Agreed. Lee, thanks so much for jumping on at short notice. Just to give us a bit extra on Ings and its potential impact on Watkins. Coming up on Saturday, Norwich City with FPL Badger, Leicester City with Aaron Lagor, and Chelsea with Rotation FPL. Manchild, now you can cue the music.